Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom.
In our top story, Israeli leaders expressed shock and outrage after a gunman attempted to assassinate U.S. President Donald Trump last week at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to the news, saying, "My wife Sarah and I are relieved that the President and First Lady are safe and strong. We send our wishes for a full and speedy recovery to the wounded police officer, and we salute the U.S. Secret Service for their swift and decisive action."
The remaining leaders of the Islamic Republic of Iran made a proposal to end the war without addressing the fanatic regime's nuclear weapons program. This comes after earlier talks between U.S. and Iranian negotiators were deemed so ineffective that President Trump canceled scheduled negotiations in Islamabad, calling them a waste of time. The total dismantlement of Iran's nuclear weapons program remains a major issue for Trump, who has repeatedly vowed to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
The Islamic Supreme Council of Iran has issued a warning that popular protests will return to the streets of Tehran. In January, Iranian leaders instructed security forces to crack down on anti-regime demonstrations, leading to mass civilian casualties, arrests, and executions. It has been reported that 42,000 people were murdered by the fanatic regime over just a 2-day period. Iranian intelligence agencies believe that the economic crisis, rising unemployment, and increasing support for Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi are all factors leading to renewed protests.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the IDF to resume its operations in Lebanon aimed at destroying the Hezbollah terror group. Just 9 days into a U.S.-brokered ceasefire, Hezbollah fired rockets and drones on northern Israel and on Israeli troops operating in southern Lebanon. 1 soldier was killed and 6 others wounded in the attack. Jerusalem warned that Hezbollah's repeated violations destroyed the ceasefire with Lebanon. Netanyahu instructed the IDF to strike Hezbollah targets with force. The Home Front Command heightened restrictions in northern Israel, effectively canceling Lag BaOmer celebrations on Mount Meron.
Jerusalem reportedly sent Israeli troops and Iron Dome missile defense systems to the United Arab Emirates during Operation Epic Fury. Abu Dhabi turned to its ally Israel when Iran launched a barrage of missiles and explosive drones on the UAE. Axios reported that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the deployment of the Iron Dome to the UAE, noting that this is the first time the system has been deployed to a country other than the United States and Israel. Axios cited a senior Emirati official saying that the UAE will never forget the assistance Israel provided.
Jerusalem announced that it would withhold $200 million in Palestinian Authority tax revenues that the PA intended as payments to terrorists and their families. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich said, "We will not transfer funds that ultimately reach terrorists who harm Israeli civilians." He stressed that our policy is clear. Every shekel intended to encourage terrorism or hostile activity will be offset and stopped. And he added that we are acting responsibly to ensure that the funds are directed toward safeguarding the vital interest of the State of Israel.
Jerusalem has announced the appointment of its first ever ambassador to the Christian world. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said this new role is intended to deepen Israel's ties with the Christian communities around the world. He appointed veteran diplomat George Deek to serve in this important position. Deek is a Christian Arab from Jaffa and most recently served the Jewish state as ambassador to Azerbaijan. This move is meant to demonstrate the importance of Christian support for Israel and to advance ties with the global Christian community.
Longtime Democratic icon Alan Dershowitz announced that after 6 decades, he is switching to the Republican Party. The senior American law professor and attorney wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal explaining that the Democratic Party has become the most anti-Israel party in the United States. He said he believes a vote for the Democratic Party is a vote against Israel. The decision by Dershowitz to join the Grand Old Party was prompted by a recent Senate vote where the majority of Democrats supported measures to block weapons sales to Israel. He noted that the Democratic Party has become so infiltrated with anti-Israel sentiment that only 7 Democrats voted against the resolution to freeze weapons transfers to Israel as it fights wars on multiple fronts.
The Department of Homeland Security has amended its restrictions, allowing green card applicants to be denied for expressing anti-Israel sentiments. The New York Times has reported that DHS is recruiting new Homeland defenders to protect America and its culture. New DHS training materials include extensive lessons in anti-Semitism and online incitement. Officers are being trained to identify aliens who engage in anti-American and anti-Semitic activities.
Palestinian terrorists based in Gaza have begun their summer tradition of launching explosive-laden kites and balloons into Israeli communities. These colorful kites are meant to entice young children to get close before they explode. Representatives from Kibbutz Nir Oz confirmed that they found 2 kites recently. They believe that Hamas is preparing to launch a volley of these dangerous aerial explosives on Israeli villages.
The Israeli cabinet has confirmed the appointment of Michael Lotem as its first ambassador to Somaliland. This marks a significant and swift step towards advancing relations between the two countries that established ties just 5 months ago. Since that historic announcement in December of 2025, Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar has visited Somaliland, and Somaliland has appointed an ambassador to Israel.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has revealed that he underwent treatment for prostate cancer. The Israeli public was shocked to learn that Netanyahu successfully led the joint American-Israeli Operation Epic Fury while going through grueling radiation therapy. Doctors at Jerusalem's Hadassah Hospital have confirmed that the Prime Minister's treatments were successful and the cancer has disappeared. The Prime Minister said his decision to delay the publication of his diagnosis was meant to prevent the terrorist regime in Iran from spreading more false propaganda. Netanyahu wrote, "I would like to share 3 things with you. Number 1, I thank God I am healthy. Number 2, I am in excellent physical shape. And number 3, I had a small medical problem with my prostate that was completely treated."
Less than a quarter of French Jews feel safe at home. The Jewish Agency for Israel has released a survey showing that only 22% of French Jews feel safe in their country. The One People report notes that 43% of European Jews and 35% of North American Jews say they experienced anti-Semitism in the last year. France remains home to the largest Jewish community in Europe, with a population of about 450,000 Jews living there. Israeli President Isaac Herzog said the report paints a troubling picture of rising anti-Semitism and a growing sense of erosion of security among world Jewry.
The Jewish state welcomed a group of 250 new immigrants from India. They are known as the descendants of Manasseh. This once-lost tribe of Israel was exiled from the Holy Land by the Assyrians in the year 720 before the Common Era. The Bnei Manasseh have an oral tradition of traveling through Persia, Afghanistan, Tibet, and China over the centuries while maintaining their Jewish faith. In November, the Knesset announced its decision to fund the immigration and absorption of 4,600 Bnei Manasseh from the region of Manipur. Several thousand Indian Israelites have made Aliyah or immigrated to Israel since the 1990s.
The International Monetary Fund has published a report ranking the state of Israel among the world's top global economies. The Jewish state's gross national product ranked 20th place globally, ahead of the United Kingdom and France. The growth of the Israeli economy during a period of multiple wars and increasing security threats is attributed to a strong technology sector and increasing defense exports, which add high value to the economy.
Jews around the world will celebrate the holiday of Lag BaOmer this week. The Bible commands the children of Israel to count 49 days, or 7 weeks, from the day after Passover until the Feast of the First Fruits, or Shavuot, otherwise known as Pentecost on the Christian calendar. The 33rd day of counting of the Omer is a day of celebration for Kabbalistic Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. According to tradition, it marks the cessation of the plague that killed 24,000 of Rabbi Akiva's students in Israel. Lag BaOmer is traditionally celebrated with bonfire parties, and it's also the date that most 3-year-old Jewish boys cut their hair for the first time. That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Rabbi Yishai Fleisher. He's a spokesperson for the city of Hebron. Yishai, thank you for being on the show.
All right, Josh, great to be with you.
What's going on in Hebron these days? You know, I hear a lot of buzz about it because there seems to be major projects happening. Can you tell us a little about that?
We house something called the Tomb of the Patriarchs and Matriarchs. That's in Hebrew we call it the Marat HaMachpelah, the Tomb of the Machpelah. That's where Abraham and Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah are buried. Our job is to normalize it and to make it bigger. So we're building a group of 30 apartments in one place. We're buying out 5 Arab buildings in another place. I myself work on reconstituting and restoring and renovating biblical sites. Okay, I worked on the tomb of Ruth and Jesse, and now I'm working on the tomb of Abner, of Ner ben Ner, Abner, the son of Ner, who was the chief of staff of King Saul. And all that, with the war and with all the challenges, we still have thousands of people coming every day because it's such an amazing site.
There's a crazy narrative that goes on all the time when you talk about Judea and Samaria. You're dealing with the Palestinian Authority, which is a terrorist organization, yet all you hear about is settler violence. You don't hear about the fact that you're constantly under attack. They're saying that you are the attacker. Where's this coming from?
We have to go back to history and remember that there are certain groupings of claims against the Jews. There are certain like typecast type things that they use against Jews. You know, Jews are violent. Jews are conniving. Jews control everything. Jews have all the money. In this case, it goes back to the old blood libel of like Jews are violent or violent against Christians. That's a big one out there, right? Tucker Carlson will say that Jews are violent against Christians, even though the exact opposite is the truth. And so too about the settlers. The way that they work, the folks that are anti-Israel, is they divide and conquer. They want to say, Israel, you're all right, but this group of people, they're violent and they're dangerous. It's exactly the opposite. There's this huge narrative right now, settler violence. Go into the UN. This is not a friendly organization. Go into their statistics. They say last year, 9 Arabs were killed by settler violence. They have names for only 3. And of those 3, we know that was in self-defense, okay? So we know that there's a great exaggeration, a type of blood libel out there, but it's the narrative that's out there.
So let's talk about Judea. So you sit on a city council in Hebron. You understand what's really going on in Judea. It seems to me that all the attention is on the north with Hezbollah, or in Gaza with Hamas or Iran. But there's also another front in Judea and Samaria that no one talks about. What's going on?
You know, you've taught me a term which is faith-based diplomacy. That's a term that you've really popularized yourself, which is awesome. Faith is based on the Bible. The heart of the Bible land, where the Bible happened, is in the heartland of Judea. It's the area to the north and south of Jerusalem. It's a mountain region. And that's in the terminology that the New York Times might use, it's called the West Bank. And so this is the heartland. Now, the Jewish people liberated that heartland in 1967 in the Great Six-Day War. And we're doing our best, Jews, so-called settlers, we're really resettlers, we're coming back to build in this land and to normalize. So in Hebron, we've got apartments going up, we're moving people in, we're buying out Arabs. In other places, we're widening out the road. And I'm working on this road personally to change its name from just Route 60, which is the Ridgeback Road, from north to south, from Beersheba all the way to Nazareth. Okay, one road, we're changing it to the Biblical Highway. So we're doing a lot to use this moment to push forward. But the war has not gotten yet to the so-called Palestine that seeks to erase Israel. It has not gone there. That's seemingly the next stage of the war. We're dealing with Lebanon, we're dealing with Gaza, we're dealing with Iran, we're dealing with Yemen, we're dealing with parts of Iraq. But one of the big problems is the terrorist nests and the anti-Israel ideologies and jihadism that's in Judea and Samaria.
When are we just going to declare sovereignty already? I think the big problem here is us. Unless we're willing to say this is our land and have sovereignty, then everyone's going to come out. You're a popular YouTuber and you know how it works everyone can say their own opinions, but once you settle it, it's settled. So when's that going to happen?
Josh, I know that you know the answer to that question better than I do. I've come to a new conclusion recently, which is when we analyze things, there's two ways to look at it, either from the end goal, from the end game, or from where you are moving towards that end game. From the end goal, it's very frustrating. From the end of the process of what we want to see here, which is a holy land, which is a land that's lit up with God's presence, that people from around the world connect to and love the Bible. From that point of view, it's very frustrating that we just don't do what's obvious that needs to be done. But from the other perspective, we've done a lot in this war to move forward. We're moving forward and pushing back jihadism in Gaza. We're doing a lot to kick out Hezbollah from the north. We're doing more and more, this government is doing a lot to resettle Judea and Samaria and to make it part of Israel. So we're moving forward. Sometimes it's in inches, sometimes it's in centimeters and millimeters, but we're moving forward on all these fronts. From the point of view of the way it should be, it's still pretty frustrating that Israel has not, doesn't do it with full vigor and say, hey, get this Palestinian Authority out, get the UN out, annex these lands, give good, decent folks, Arabs that want to live with Israel, give them residency and move forward with that. So we haven't made those declarations yet, but I think that October 7th from 3 years ago, has created a process which is going in the right direction.
Yishai, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Josh, on my WhatsApp status, I have a 3-word phrase that I use all the time. Ta'ir eretz mikvodecha. May the land light up from your glory, God. As the Jewish people are coming home, the most beautiful single thing that's happening is the ingathering of the exiles. It's happening right now. Jerusalem is being built. Awesome stuff is happening. And the news just seems to cover it all up, and it doesn't show you the beauty, but that's really what's happening. The land is being lit up from God's glory through the ingathering of the exiles, and we could all be part of it.
Thank you, Yishai, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning into Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
And now the truth from Zion.
The Iranian threat to Christians is a clear and present danger. Inside Iran, the fanatic Islamic regime criminalizes free worship and jails converts to other religions. Beyond its borders, Tehran's proxies help create conflict zones where historic Christian communities are under constant attack. Churches face surveillance, Persian language services are curtailed, and security forces target house church networks. Converts from Islam are especially vulnerable, typically charged with acting against national security or propaganda against the state, as radical judges apply religious law. The U.S. State Department and the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom have for years documented these patterns. A key legal turn came in 2021 when Iran added 2 articles to its penal code, vague provisions against what it called deviant educational or proselytizing activity and insulting sacred values. Rights groups warned they would be used against unrecognized minorities, including Christian converts. That prediction has borne out in arrest, trials, and long prison sentences handed down to pastors, lay leaders, and ordinary believers. The years since have seen cycles of intensified repression. Reporting and open source monitoring show repeated waves of arrest, especially around Christmas and Easter. In 2024 alone, advocacy trackers noted sharp increases in aggregate jail sentences. In early 2025, Iranian authorities rearrested previously freed Christians linked to Persian language house churches. The 2025 report by the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom describes an environment that worsened after Iran's military escalation with Israel in June. Religious minorities, Baha'is, Christians, Jews, and Sunni Muslims faced heightened surveillance, detentions, and prosecutions. The threat to Christian communities also extends through Iran's regional reach. In Iraq, Iran-aligned popular mobilization forces have repeatedly been cited for harassment of Christians on the Nineveh Plains. In Yemen, the Houthis, armed and controlled by Iran, rule parts of the country with with a hard line on religion. Converts to Christianity have fled Houthi-dominated areas. Those Christians choosing to stay must maintain a low profile or go underground. Lebanon also suffers from Iranian influence. Hezbollah's militarization of the south and the cross-border war with Israel since late 2023 have displaced tens of thousands of persons, including Christian villagers caught between military launch sites and counterstrikes. Even when not singled out because of faith, these communities pay the price of living beside an Iran-backed army. On the other hand, Israel is home to a sizable Christian community woven into everyday life across the country. When Iran and its proxies target Israeli population centers and infrastructure, those attacks endanger not just Jews, but Christians as well, their schools, churches, and neighborhoods. For Israel and its allies, the stakes are shared.
The Islamic leadership of Iran often says, first we will go after the Saturday people, and then the Sunday people. They have started by attacking Jews, but will end up attacking Christians.
When a rogue state that fires on Israeli cities and also criminalizes Christian worship at home, the response must be coordinated and firm. That means air and missile defense. It also means sanctions and law enforcement. It means intelligence sharing on so-called front companies. It also means support for civil society and clear public consequences for those who raid homes because people prayed in the Persian language. Inside Iran, a different vision exists. Opposition leader Reza Pahlavi speaks openly about a secular, democratic Iran, one that protects religious freedom and seeks peace with its neighbors, including Israel. His Cyrus Accords look forward to an Iran that reconnects with the region and the world without exporting terror or criminalizing religious beliefs. Many Iranians of all faiths aspire to that dream. None of this diminishes the courage of Iranian Christians now, the pastors who teach discreetly, the families who gather quietly, the recognized churches that navigate constant oversight, and the converts who count the cost and still cling to their beliefs. Nor does it ignore the suffering of Christians in neighboring countries whose lives are shaped by the presence of Iran's terrorist proxies. The goal is simple. Christians in Iran should be able to worship without fear. Christians in Iraq, Lebanon, and Yemen should be able to teach, pray, and live without terrorist militias at their gates. Israel should not face terror because of religious ideology. That future is possible as repression is exposed, finance is squeezed, and a different Iran is encouraged to emerge. From Jerusalem, this is the truth from Zion. Up next, shining light from Israel.
In the city of Jerusalem, within the walls of the Old City is the Western Wall, the closest place to the Holy of Holies that Jews and people of all faiths can come and pray freely. Today's tour isn't on this section of the Western Wall, but rather the section that's hidden underground as we visit the Western Wall Heritage Foundation. So come with me. So we're finally underneath in the Western Wall Heritage Foundation classic tour here with our expert guide here, Nahum. Thank you so much for joining us today and showing us the wonders, what is below the surface of the ground. And already here along the Western Wall, the first time in this tour that we see it, we have the Great Stone. And these are Herodian stones. And Herod went through great expense to do such detailed work along the stones, creating a frame and a 45-degree angle and another frame. You can still see the fine tooling marks from over 2,000 years ago. And the reason why is that all of this was buried for nearly 1,700 years until we came and we excavated everything out to reveal these stones. You can see just here behind Nahum, you can see a peg, original peg by the Romans that they put out of the wall, and this is Roman plaster. Why are the Romans putting plaster along the Western Wall? Well, they had no use for the platform that's on the other side where the temple stood. They turned this entire area into a reservoir to collect water when it was raining. But the stone itself, I called it the Great Stone, one of the largest ones ever excavated. It's literally almost 50 feet long, 12 feet high, and 10 feet deep. And the bedrock, this isn't the bedrock. The bedrock, the western wall goes down another 50 feet, which means they had to raise this huge stone and place it here, which must have taken such an incredible amount of ingenuity in order to do that. Come, let's head further down the tunnels to the closest we can get to the Holy of Holies when the temple stood. Come with us. We're walking through this tunnel along the western wall. As you're walking, you have these plexiglass windows where you can see part of the western wall that the Romans had pushed over from the very top. In one regard, we celebrate because we're back here in Jerusalem. We have the western wall. We have freedom of prayer for all nations once again. But at the same time, we see the destruction of the second temple, which also makes us sad. Let's continue as we walk down this awesome tunnel. So we just passed one of the gates along the western wall that led right to the temple itself, which means where we are right now on the western wall tunnel tour is directly across from where the temple stood and the Holy of Holies. When you're on the tunnel tour, you get an opportunity to come here and to be standing directly across from that holy place, just to be able to put your hands on these stones and to offer your prayers in what is the closest we can get to of the holiest place in the entire world is just unbelievable. So the stone that I'm running my hand along right now is actually the bedrock of Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount, also known as Mount Zion. And I'm now standing on paving stones from the marketplace that ran along the western wall. This is the original Wall Street. This was the economy of Jerusalem. So the money changers were located in this area as well. And I always find it so remarkable is to see this paving stone here unscathed because it was never used. At some point, the construction here just came to a sudden halt, and we just don't know why. But that doesn't matter. What matters most is that the Jewish people have returned to the land of Israel, to Jerusalem, our holy city, and once again can walk on these paving stones that our ancestors walked on when they made pilgrimage to our holy capital, the city of Jerusalem. Thank you for watching. And on your next visit to Jerusalem and the Old City, make sure to visit the Western Wall Tunnel Tour.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.